The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hello everyone. Today on Aging Horizons, we're going to be talking about asthma. Probably doesn't sound that exciting, but I think you're going to enjoy this show. For one thing, we're going to be talking about an at-home benefit with asthma through the Department of Public Health and Human Services that is just going to be wonderful if you're an asthma sufferer or have a family member who is. We have so much to tell you and a great guest, so stay with us.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare summary notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Receiving help for Ella has been life-changing, and the best word for it is relief. I was the therapist, I was the aide, and I couldn't be the mom because emotionally you're just to your wits' end, you're trying to survive.
I provide care for the Harrises, specifically their daughter Ella. Respite care is extremely challenging, but the rewards that you receive from it are 100 times more than working with a child that doesn't have special needs. Once they get something, it's everything. It's a you celebrate. You don't just enjoy those moments. You celebrate every moment that you get, that you guided them to that next step.
Respite. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. Will you provide it? Call 800-224-6034 or visit respite.mt.gov.
It went from survival to enjoying life and being able to be a mom again.
Brought to you by the Montana Broadcasters and this station.
Hello everyone and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and today we have with us just a really great guest who's going to talk to us about asthma and just some of the sort of things that go along with that, as well as some benefits that might be available to you if you are an asthma sufferer. We have with us BJ Biskupiak. Yes, I got it. BJ, so nice to have you with us. And you are the manager of the Montana Asthma Control Program. Yes. Correct? And that's with the Department of Public Health and Human Services.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what goes on there. I mean, we have other things to talk about, but just as a baseline, what kinds of stuff is that area involved in?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Sure.
The Asthma Control Program, we are kind of buried. We're in the Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion Bureau at DPHHS. So that means we work with programs like the Diabetes Prevention Program and the Cardiovascular and Stroke Program and Arthritis Program, so things like that. So other services that are offered to the community through those programs, we try to coordinate that with ours as well. We do have 5 very dedicated public health professionals on our staff who kind of oversee different aspects of our program. And that can be from this asthma home visiting program that we'll talk a little bit more about, also to quality improvement with healthcare clinics, education with schools and child care facilities, and then just a lot of program evaluation, a lot of those things that just go with all public health programs as well.
Yeah. And I kind of have to chuckle when you say you're buried, because it really, it's funny to me that these programs, especially with chronic diseases and such, they're so important, and it's almost kind of good you're buried, because that means it's being taken care of, and you're, you know, as you said, you have dedicated folks who are working on it, and unless it's, you know, shouting from the rooftops, that's scary. So pretty nice that you're a little buried there. And so in terms of working with the chronic diseases that you work with, do you also, I mean, is there outreach and advocacy involved? What other kinds of things are your staff and you involved in doing?
Sure. Well, we do have a pretty robust network of partners around the state. You know, those include pulmonologists, respiratory therapists, nurses, so healthcare providers from all different levels. We also work with the American Lung Association as well to try to bring these different public health interventions to the community. That can be through you know, social media type communication, large media communication as well, either whether it's events like this or newspaper, TV ads, things like that. So we try to work through those partners to get the word out, but like you said, sometimes we're buried, so sometimes it's hard to bring attention to the chronic diseases when communicable disease is so flashy, or, you know,
exactly.
maybe
well,
some
yes.
more pressing issues.
Exactly. Feels more immediate, much more immediate than maybe that chronic disease does.
Yeah. But I would say, I think to anyone with asthma or any of these other chronic conditions, I think that is your world, that is your most immediate concern. And so while all this is going around elsewhere in the community, that's your day-to-day, is just trying to get through your asthma, depending on how bad that might be.
Yeah. And we're talking about, you know, I know when you and I discussed you appearing, we talked about, is this a program for all ages, just kids? It's for everybody. For one thing, we know that all ages get asthma. For another, we also know that, in my world anyway, there's a lot of adults, grandparents raising grandchildren who like very well have something like this going on for them. So you know, just great in general for this kind of information to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I guess to add on to that, just from the data that we have, we know that there's almost 8,000 grandparents in Montana that are taking care of grandchildren. And so you figure out of there, when we kind of apply some of those prevalence numbers for asthma, you know, there's certainly going to be quite a few kiddos with asthma that are dropped in the laps of their grandparents. And
and not maybe not being prepared. I think asthma is one of those things. My husband has asthma, and it can be frightening thing if you aren't expecting it, if you don't know what to do. And so I think that this is the kind of information, especially getting excited to talk about that home visit type program that you have, because this is the sort of thing that, you know, as you said, this is a person's whole entire life. If they have asthma, if they have arthritis, if they have whatever chronic illness, it's their whole life. Right.
And really, and that's one of our biggest goals, is to try to educate the patients, try to work through this home visiting program, or work with our clinical partners out there in the healthcare world to educate patients so that they can manage their asthma, so it isn't as overwhelming to them. So it's just something that is a small piece of their life. They manage it, it's under control, but it's not consuming to them.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Because it becomes who you are then.
Right.
And no one wants to only be a big old ball of asthma. I mean, I certainly don't want that for anybody that I love or care for. So these are the kinds of, again, programs out there that they might not be the flashy ones or whatever, but boy, are they important, and they really do take care of us in that underlying way, don't they? Yeah. Okay, so folks, the next segment we're going to be talking about this home visiting asthma program that I'm all excited about, and we'll tell you some details about that and other asthma types of details that might be important to you, especially if you just need some resources and you're just looking for to educate yourself and to do a better job with your own asthma or with a family member. We have so much more to talk about, and we don't want you to go anywhere, so stay with us.
Can you say ombudsman?
Ombudsman. Benson? Oobison?
Fortunately, you don't have to say it right to get the help of a long-term care ombudsman. If you or a loved one reside in assisted living or long-term care, an ombudsman can help resolve any issue. And these services are completely free and confidential. Now, why don't you try that again?
Ombudsman.
A decade of Montana fourth graders on Energy Share. Robbie Holman reminds us that even during the chilliest Montana winters, our homes don't have to be cold, not if we Energy Share the love. And Emma Bergman knows who to call when the cost of heating your home starts to put a chill on your family. Emma says, when winter is in the air, it's time to care with Energy Share. Energy Share is not a government program. It's neighbors helping neighbors who face energy emergencies the Montana way. Call or visit our website today. Thanks, Energy Share, for helping people in need.
I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1992, and I went into denial. It made me angry. I was a professional chef, and I didn't want to change my eating style. It took me a long time to get serious about managing my health. My perspective changed from resentment to one of loving my body, the container for my spirit. Getting help from my diabetes educator supported my goals of improved self-care. I want to feel good and have a great life. My diabetes educator helps me do this.
Did you just text me?
I didn't want to disturb you if you were sleeping.
Sleeping? I'm sitting right next to you, silly.
There you are. Hey, I found a couple of Medicare helping programs online that I think we ought to look into.
It says if we qualify, we can get help paying for our prescription drugs. Oh, and there's a program that can help pay our Part B premium.
To learn more about extra help and Medicare savings programs, call your local SHIP counselor today.
Maybe I better text him.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with BJ Biskupiak today, and we're talking about asthma. And BJ is the manager of the Montana Asthma Control Program. Nice to have you, BJ. Glad you're here. I know that it can get a little dry, but I also think it's quite important that we know some numbers, some statistics about asthma in the state of Montana specifically. What are we looking at in terms of the scope of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people sometimes don't know how many people do have asthma because it can go a little unseen, especially if it's maybe a little bit more on the mild side. Right. But what we know is that about 11% of adults in Montana have asthma. So that's about 1 in 9 people that you know have asthma out of the adult population. And then for children, that's about 6%. So still about 1 out of 15 or so have asthma. And that's currently reported. So there are certainly a number of people that have been told in their life that they have asthma as well. But may not be impacting them at this point, or maybe they've, quote unquote, grown out of it, or maybe moved away from their triggers or that type of thing. So certainly a pretty large number of Montanans that do have asthma. And the ones that we're most concerned about are those people that have uncontrolled asthma. It's one thing to know it, know your triggers, have your medication down. But for those folks that have uncontrolled asthma, they're going to have more emergency department visits, more hospitalizations, days of work missed, and also if you're caring for a child, school days missed, and certainly an impact on that child's learning as well. And then I think I kind of hit on this, but the ED visits and the hospitalizations really start to add up in costs as well, not only for the individual, but then for the state as a whole when it comes to insurance costs and things like that. Well,
and I would also point out that, especially with little ones, hospital visit trauma must start to build up too, and can be, I would imagine, can be very difficult for littles. Yeah, and what we also see is with an emergency department visit, a lot of the times you'll see those oral steroids prescribed, and you really want to try to avoid more than 2 bursts of oral steroids in a year. Mm-hmm. So if you're going over and over again and being put on oral steroids, that also has other impacts on your health as well. Sure. So this is probably, there's no simple answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you end up having asthma? What happens in your body? Sure. Well,
I won't dive too far into the
No, we don't need to go into the weeds,
pathophysiology, but sure.
But you can't catch it because someone shook your hand.
No,
asthma isn't like that.
Certainly not. No,
Yeah.
it is hereditary. So if one parent has it, I think that the statistics work out where it's you're about 25% or about 25% likely to end up having asthma. If both parents have it, you're about 50% chance of that child will have asthma. And then there's a host of environmental factors.
Exactly.
Some of the biggest ones for the development of asthma would be tobacco smoke exposure in the home, or it could be to allergens as well. So if someone's sensitized to different molds, that certainly is one of the bigger allergens that we see. Or pollens, grasses, things like that can certainly be kind of another trigger as well. Other triggers as well. So those kind of all factor in, and there's a host of other triggers that make it seem like you can't even go outside sometimes, or even in your own home you may have issues. So so those are all kind of concomitant factors.
Yeah, and ones that if you start to feel like this is going on, check with your doc, right?
Yeah, really, and I think that's one of our biggest messages. If you don't know what your trigger is, trying to get to the bottom of that, and that's what that home visiting program that we'll talk about, that's what that really helps with as well, trying to understand what it is. It's not just happening out of nowhere. It really is set off by something in your environment most of the time.
Well, so let's talk about that home visit program, because I think it's exciting and really would be great for lots of folks.
Yeah, it's a fantastic program. We've been operating the Asthma Home Visiting Program. We call it MAP for short, Montana Asthma Home Visiting Program. It has been in operation since 2011, and the outcomes for people that have participated in that program are just phenomenal. We see, again, a decrease in emergency department visits, decrease in hospitalizations, missed school days, missed work days, and then overall just an improvement in asthma control, quality of life, and we measure that through several different tools, but we see just overall positive outcomes for people who participate in that. Kind of some of the basics is it is a year-long program. There are 6 contacts.
Okay.
4 of those contacts would be in person, or we have opened it up to virtual home visiting as well in recent years, and that was pushed a little bit with the pandemic.
Certainly, but I bet you're finding some great use to it.
Absolutely, and so 4 of those contacts are provided by a home visiting nurse or a respiratory therapist, and they're also trained in specific asthma education, conducting home environmental assessments, and then kind of other general home visiting safety tips, things like that.
Sure.
But they do have that expertise that they bring to the program. And there are many different components that go into that, but gosh, I could go on and on.
You know what? We're gonna do that in the next segment, because we're almost through to the end here. But and I think I feel a little kind of dumb that I didn't know that this started in 2011. But it just goes to show you that until it's something important in your life, you really don't pay attention. And so this is why shows like this are so great for folks that, oh yeah, I remember that BJ guy. He told us all about what we needed to know about asthma. So folks, we do have more to talk about. We're going to let BJ just keep on talking. So come on back and learn some more about some of these great programs.
With as many as 1 in 10 Americans at risk for Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia, chances are someone you know and love will receive that diagnosis. When that happens, you may well feel devastated, but know that you are not alone. Help is available. You don't have to face dementia by yourself. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
It's been 27 years. I never thought I'd still be smoking, but here I am, COPD and all. I'm about to have a granddaughter. There's so much to show her, but I'm scared I won't be able to keep up like I used to. I kind of gave up on myself, on quitting. But it's different now. I want to be here for her and for my daughter.
Every generation produces heroes, men and women who step forward to defend our country in time of need, no matter the personal cost to themselves. And though we can never fully repay them, we can make sure they have access to low-cost, long-term care when they need it. That's what Montana's Veterans Homes are all about. If you've got a hero in need in your family, call us. We can help.
This is Sergeant Jones. Please respond. I was separated from my squad. Requesting backup. Anyone? Please respond. I'm all alone here.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with BJ Viskupiak, and we are talking about the Asthma Control Program today. And when we left, we were talking about this pretty wonderful program of home visiting and information and assistance that y'all have got going on. Can you talk to us, BJ, just about the basics, eligibility, that, you know, what does the program cover, that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. So eligible participants for this program are defined as children or adults at this point. They're residents of Montana, number one, and number two, they have to have had at least one emergency department or hospitalization / urgent care visit in the last year. Okay. Or an asthma control test score of less than 20, and that's just a validated control test that helps measure symptoms, impact, impairment, things like that. It's just a simple five-question questionnaire. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of the two big components of that, but then we also found, just through speaking with our provider partners out there, that there are a lot of patients that don't fall into those two kind of categories. So there may be somebody who's struggling with lung function that isn't necessarily out of control with their asthma, but that could benefit from the program, that could benefit from the education. So anyone with a referral from their provider to the program can actually participate as well. So as long as they have that confirmed asthma diagnosis.
Because what you really want is for folks to come in with an official, if you will, sort of note from their doctor that this is actually what's going on for them. It isn't that we don't want to see other people, but we don't want to mix it up if it's not what you have.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we can't serve patients with just COPD or other conditions that aren't diagnosed as asthma. So. Right.
And you know what? I forgot, because I was going to say it right at the top of the segment. How do we find you guys? Let's talk about that before any other thing. We can put your website, we can put your phone number on the screen.
Well, probably the easiest way to find this program and just more resources about asthma in general is just asthma.mt.gov. Really simple website. And actually, one of the best parts about this program is we do have a referral portal now right there on our website. So someone can click in, they can self-refer to the program, or a provider can submit a referral right through that link. And it just brings up a simple form. It's private, it's secure. It goes right to our home visitors in 9 different sites throughout the state. They do serve the entire state with virtual home visiting as well, and up to 25 counties. But in those 9 sites, one of these referrals would go to that home visitor, and they would follow up with that patient, confirm that they do in fact have an asthma diagnosis, talk to their provider and say, hey, do you think this is a good program for them?
Yeah, would this be good fit?
Yeah, and then it's as simple as enrolling and setting up the first visit. So that self-referral portal has really been a huge success for us over the last just a couple years that we've had that open now.
You know, and just, I guess, speaking about virtual types of services, I think we've all had to get used to some things that we maybe didn't think we would have to after these years of pandemic. Through this program, a person can actually take part in a virtual appointment?
They can. In a perfect world, everyone would be able to get this in-home visiting service, but just due to the geographic nature of Montana, that's just not a reality for everyone.
Right.
But we did want to make sure that we were being equitable in providing this service to all counties in Montana. So even those far-reaching counties up there, Dawson, so far out in the east, we did want to open this up to virtual home visiting. So our home visitors are still kind of getting used to that as well. So there are always some challenges, but I think that because they're new to it as well, they're willing to work with with their clients to kind of work through some of those troubleshooting issues and the glitches that come up through virtual
which
visits.
I think is pretty wonderful, because I think it's it's only fair that even though they're way out there, the folks in those really far-flung places have an ability to get in this way, and can really probably help them in many, many ways, much more than just their health, but just not having to get out on the road. Maybe it's a stormy Montana winter day and you don't have to go anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff with virtual, and I always like to say to folks, if you don't understand it, that's okay too. Somebody can teach you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our work that's done through this program can really still be conveyed in a successful way through this virtual platform. And I'll just hit on a couple of those so people know exactly what they would receive.
Sure.
It's a lot of it's the education, and I think that's the piece that can be done very well through virtual still. Education about your signs and symptoms, so people know when those asthma attacks start to flare up, not to panic, what to do, what's the plan. Identifying asthma triggers is another piece. And with this program comes a home environmental assessment. So they will walk through and they will look for different potential triggers in the home. And so I think that's a little challenging with virtual, but it can be done. And then just connecting with different programs around the community, and that team-based care piece is still really important. So,
Well, BJ, this is very exciting. Glad to hear you guys, even though you're buried back there, we're glad that you're there, and I'm so glad that I know with the amount of chronic illness in my own family, if there was not these types of programs, I don't know what we'd do. So it's really lovely that we have this available to Montanans. And I'm so glad that you could be with us today to talk about it from A to Z, and I hope you'll come back the next time there's something great and fun on the horizon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And folks, don't have to worry that you don't know how to do something virtually. If you want to learn, somebody can teach you. We can help you through it. But if this is for you, reach out and contact us. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.